Exercise 1, Creo 10.0. In this exercise, we're going to take a look at the foundational tools to construct something like what you see up on there. We're actually going to build that part. This is an actual, just a widget, kind of like an enclosure, I suppose. And so we're going to learn some neat things. We're going to learn how to extrude rectangles, sketch. We're going to put in fillets as well as chamfers. And as you can see, we're going to shell it out at the bottom like that. So let's begin. Once you have Creo loaded, just go to New up here, and you get to name this part, and go ahead and label it capital E1 for exercise 1. Hit OK. And some of the options you might want to set up, if you go to File, and if you go to Options, you can see that there's a whole array of tools in here that you can modify. So for example, if you go to Appearance and Model Display, make sure that this is set to isometric. At least for this class, it will just make it a little bit easier for you. And some of the other settings on here we're going to set to. So also if you go to Entity Display, you'll see that there's options here. You could turn on edges or shade with reflections and things like that. If you don't have a very powerful graphics card, I might recommend you stay away from those for right now, as well as the anti-aliasing, and just verify that you have a card that can support that type of thing. If you do set them up high and you see the system crashing or things, that might be due to you just set those too high and your graphics card may not support it. All right, some of the other things, like if you go to Core in the Sketcher, one of my favorite settings that I like to have everyone turn on is make the sketch or sketching plane parallel to the screen. That's a really nice one. It just makes your experience much better. All right, also when we talk about appearance, you'll see that there's these default themes. You can set it to a dark theme. You can see the background turns dark, light, or experimental. So feel free to choose any of those. The only problem with that might be is if you are trying, like I'll say, okay, click on that green dot. And if you set it to something different, you might show up a little different. So be careful changing those colors while you're going through these exercises. All right, and that's about it. So let's go ahead. Oh, one last thing. Shortcut, keyboard shortcuts. This is really nice. So for example, if you wanted to zoom to fit, you could type in like fit, and there's refit. We could click on that, and then our shortcut key, let's make it F. And then you could go ahead and apply that. Just down here, you just have to hit OK. And it's going to prompt you, do you want to save this for the configuration for next time? Yes. And it's going to show you this. You could create different configurations for different users. In this case, just go with the standard one and hit OK. All right, so now we'll go ahead and sketch this on the front plane. So you'll see over here on the left, this is our feature tree and our browsers, some people call it, and this is going to contain our roadmap of everything we create, and it allows us to modify and change. So let's go ahead and select front, and right here you have sketch. Now you could go up here as well and find the sketch tool. There it is, right there. Either one is fine. They're the same thing. It's just that sometimes it's easier to just right-click and get these things. Now, I have some things turned off. You might not have had these turned off, most likely. If I turn this on, this is what most of you will see, the planes. And this software, Creo, actually is the foundation of this plane technology, as far as I'm aware of. It's been around since 1987, and it has grown in popularity when it comes to plane-based modelers. Most other CAD systems, modern CAD systems, many of them use it. And those planes are your paper. So in this case, you have front, top, and right, and you get to sketch on those and pick which one you want, depending upon the model that you're designing. So if you like to turn those on and see them, that's fine. I actually turn them off because we could actually activate them from right here and see them. So, okay, we're already sketching, so let's notice there's the line tool, and if you hit the little arrow to the right, there's different types of lines. Rectangle, hit the little arrow to the right of that, you'll see that there's center rectangles and corner rectangles. We're just looking for corner rectangles, so go ahead and select that, and hover your pointer now to the center of those crosshairs, and you get that little dot in the center. That's a automatic relationship. And relationships are one of two constraint types that are used inside sketching. The first is dimensions. So like if you draw a line, you want it to be 5 inches, you can type in 5 inches. In this case, you could lock it down on that origin. That's your 0 marker in space, 0 for X, Y, and Z. And when we lock it down, it's a nice anchor point. And that cannot be moved. You could put additional WCSs and things, but that's what we're interested in. So just click, and you can see as we're dragging this out, you could go ahead and just visualize what you want there, maybe about that size. Click, and now hovering over this area, go ahead and click on the middle wheel. So if you have a wheel on your mouse or a third mouse button, click on it like it is a mouse button one time, and the dimensions should appear. And now you can drag those dimensions out. You can see we have them there. And we actually want them to be considerably smaller. So double click on this one. This is supposed to be 3, so you could go ahead and type in 3. And then go ahead and double click, hit enter. Oops, let me try that again. 3. Okay, and then double click on this one, and this is going to be 5, and hit enter. Now you don't have to type in 5.00. As long as it's just 5 inches, just type in 5. And it will know. All right, these little dots here are actually the constraints I was talking about. These are, like this case is a vertical, this is a horizontal. Now what does that mean? Well, eventually if you start stretching and dragging these out, they already have dimensions on it, so we don't want to do that yet. But if we were to do that, these would always maintain a vertical or horizontal relation. They would not go out of sync, and they would basically stay straight. If you delete those, you could then move this and it will actually tilt at an angle. So that's why those are there. Those are an extra layer of constraints, geometric constraints, like tangency is included in that, as well as parallelism and perpendicularity. We'll see more of those as we progress in the class. But let's go ahead, and we're ready to extrude. So you could go ahead and hit OK. And now you see we have our box, and go up to extrude. Now when you click on extrude, go ahead and rotate. What you rotate is with your middle wheel. If you scroll it, it zooms in and out. But if you actually push it down and hold it like it's a button and move your mouse left or right, you'll see it dynamically rotate, so you can see what's going on better. You also have up here, that's not one. You have this little button here, saved orientation. So if you want the standard orientation, we set that up to be isometric. So if you click on that, you're going to get an isometric preview like that. Also over here, you could go with shading with edges. You know, so I had it on shading with reflections. It's just personal preference. There's also hidden lines and wireframe and just shading without edges. So pick whichever one you prefer. I'll actually, I like shading with edges, but I kind of like the shading with reflections today. It looks pretty good. All right, so here we have a dimension we could change. We could also grab the little dot, and if we're doing conceptual work, if we're not sure what it's supposed to be just yet, you could just drag it and adjust it. So go ahead and give that a try. Grab that dot with your pointer and hold the mouse button down. Now, when I say mouse button, I'm always referring to the left mouse button. That's when we use 90% of the time. 10% of the time, we're going to use the right mouse button. We'll see that in a little bit. That brings up context-sensitive menu options typically. So that since we have this, you can also double-click on this dimension and change it, or you could change it up here. This gives you more options. So we actually just want it to be 0.5. So type in 0.5 and hit enter, which is a ½ inch, and hit the green check. All right, so now that we have our block, you could actually try rotating it again. If you hold the wheel down like it's a button and move your mouse left, right, up and down, you could see the dynamic rotation of our model. Now let's go back to the standard or default orientation, which we have both are set to isometric currently. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and build another block on here. Kind of like Legos, we're going to stack a block on it, but we want it to actually merge with this part, and that's what Creo does automatically. And recently they've added where you could keep them separately, just like Legos, where they're two separate parts stacked on one another. But we're going to go right over here now. Normally you could go to Sketch. Now when you use the Sketch tool, old-time pro engineer users, that's what this used to be called, prefer not to go directly to Sketch first. Instead, they go to Extrude. But users of other systems are kind of trained to use Sketch and then go to Extrude. What's the difference? Is there any advantage or disadvantage? Well, if you go right to Sketch, it creates a Sketch feature, and then it creates an Extrude. And there's some, on older computers especially that were much slower, there was some inefficiency there because each one of those features took a little bit of time to compute. And so adding those additional features slowed down the models. But computers are very fast these days, and it doesn't make as much of a difference for a small file, but imagine compounding that over 1 million parts if you're building the Mars lander, for example. It could actually slow it down. So a good practice is actually to do it this way, which is a little different than other CAD systems, especially if you're familiar with other CAD systems. Go right to Extrude. It automatically starts a sketch on the surface that you selected, and it doesn't add that additional sketch feature above it. It actually adds it below it later. So let's go to rectangle. Again, we'll just use rectangle and snap to this corner. You'll get the little dot. Click, drag this to the right, and you'll see it will infer to this right edge. Go ahead and you'll notice actually there's a midpoint up there too. You could snap to, but not in this case. Stay away from that one. Just go ahead and click right about there. And now, if you remember, this is where it's a little interesting to bring the dimensions up. You have to middle click. So that means the wheel, if you click on it and release, the dimensions appear. Now you might be wondering, like, wait, there's only one dimension. What about the width, which we know is 3 inches? Well, that's what this is. This constraint locked it into the edge, so it's automatically 3 inches. It's not required to add a 3-inch dimension. We could go to dimension, try and add one, and force it in. It'll tell us, though, there's an issue because that already has it. So it's a tug of war, you might say, between the two, and you have to decide which one wins. So you either delete one or you render it. Actually, in this case, you would delete. You could click on this and you could hit delete on your keyboard, but we're going to leave it. So go ahead and double click on this dimension though and type in 1.5 for the height and hit enter, and it will go to its proper height. Okay, let's go ahead and hit OK, and you could rotate a little bit, see what's going on. And in this case, you could double click here, type in 0.5 and enter. And you could hit the green check, and sometimes you could enter again and it will apply it. So notice that it attached the two. And later on, I'll show you multi-body solids where you could have them separated. But in this case, this is what we wanted. Okay, I'm going to actually change to shaded with edges just so you can see a little bit better. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and add some additional features here. Let's add some fillets. Now, actually, let's first add a hole. Now, there's a couple ways you could add a hole. There's actually a hole tool that has a library of standard holes, countersinks, counterbores, things like that. But in this case, I'm just going to show you the basics, how you can make one without that hole tool. Select the face here and go to Extrude. Now, this is the same exact Extrude that's up here. So either one you could select, or if you want to just draw a sketch first, that's fine too. Go ahead and click Extrude. It opened up a sketch on that surface that we selected. Now go to circle. Now, if you hit the little arrow to the right circle, there's different types of circles. These are really nice, actually. Concentric circle comes in handy sometimes, and 3-point tangent I don't use too much, if ever, because there's a tangency option up here. But let's go to circle. Now, hover your pointer in the upper left quadrant here, click and drag out a circle, click again, and the middle click. Now, we have some dimensions that appeared. Let's move these over. This one, we're going to go double click on. That's going to be 0.75 for the diameter. This, it's going to be dimensioned 1 inch off the left edge, and that's what I want. That's a dimension I like. So I'm just going to type in 1. However, this 4-inch dimension, maybe I want to dimension, instead of to the bottom, maybe dimension that to the top. So like if this is manufactured by someone in the machine shop, it's a little easier to dimension between 1 inch versus extending it the length of the part and different stair steps. So let's go ahead and go to the dimension tool and force one in. Now, notice this one is a light blue. These are dark blue. Those are locked in. When we added those. It's not technically locked yet, but there is they're applied. So go ahead and now select this top edge as our new reference to this center point. Click. Now move your pointer to the left, and you might, if you've used other CAD systems, you're like, wait, I should be seeing a preview. What's going on here? Well, here's where Creo's rather interesting. Now remember, Creo comes up from 1987 and it has a tremendous amount of technology built into it. And the way it works is very different than what you see most things work today. And they've improved upon that, and they've really made it very Windows-esque. But some things like this carry over. Here's the trick. Middle wheel click, and it will drop in the dimension. So, sorry to be long-winded there, but anyway, go ahead and type in 1 and hit enter. Just remember that, though, when you're like, wait, how come I can't find the dimension? You have to middle click. So the wheel, or if you have the third mouse button, click on that, and it will drop the dimension. So that's one of those little quirks about this software. Not a bad thing. It actually is kind of nice in some respects, but it's just different. So now you can middle click again. And middle clicking could also get you out of the tool. You'll notice as soon as I middle click the second time, the dimension tool deactivated. Same as like kind of hitting escape. It doesn't always do that with every tool, but this is in one case it does. And now what you could do here, we could click and drag these dimensions. And when I say click and drag, I just hold down the mouse button and relocate them. And I recommend laying your dimensions out as if you would like to see them on a drawing. Because later on, when we create a drawing, we could have it automatically add these dimensions for us rather than having to add them a second time. And they will come generally laid out the same way you left them in the model. All right, now we could go ahead and hit OK. Rotate it so you can see what's going on. Now here's the thing. It's starting to add material, and that's the typical extrude. What's really cool here, see this little pink arrow? It's not green when you hover over it. Click, and it will reverse the direction. Now it's going to say it also is going to remove material. The AI built into here automatically realizes that there's material behind it. Thus, it says the optional thing would be to remove material. So it automatically selects that, and that's right here, remove material. And it's just letting us know it did that. Okay, now we could set it to go a ½ inch deep, which we know that's the thickness of this plate. But there's something better. There's something called design intent. And again, Creo is the grandfather, back in the Pro E days, as they call it, of this whole idea of design intent. A plan on how you want to model this so that it's easily editable, so you can edit things, as well as they update automatically in some cases, where you don't have to go back and change things that you might forget about. i.e., change always occurs in design. And let's say this is a ½ inch plate right here to here. But later on, somebody changes it, like, hey, we need to reinforce it. Let's make it 3/4 of an inch. They change it because you could just double click on it. The dimensions appear, type in 0.75, hit enter, and they might think they're done. They might not check, though, that whoever designed this had this at 0.5 for the depth, and now it's not a through hole, and now the part's wrong. So here is a slight look at design intent. How could we avoid that so we don't have to worry about it? Well, here's the trick. In this case, if you click here, these give you all the options, like for symmetric extrusions up to the next surface extrusions or through all. Go with through all, and that will always ensure that that is a through hole, no matter how thick that plate, how thick or thin that plate gets. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind early on, but don't waste too much time trying to think it through, because it comes with experience. But just note that that's a good thing to think about later as you become more active with the software. All right, so now we have our hole. So you saw how to create a hole. Let's now go and add some rounds. Now here, rounds are known as fillets as well, or blends or radiuses in different CAD systems. They call them rounds here. If you hit the little arrow to the right, you'll see auto round, but we're just going to go with round. All right, now they have different types of rounds. They have C2 continuous, that's curvature continuous, or G2, some refer to it. We just want circular. And go ahead and let's see, we're going to set this, the radius, set it to 1 for 1 inch. And now let's select this edge. Now what you have to do with this software, especially if you're coming from a 2D platform, if you've never done 3D before, you have to think like you're working in 3D. Let's say you have this block of material on your desk, and if you had a file to round this off, you would actually hit this edge with the file. So see that edge that I'm hovering over? Select that, and you should get a preview. Now you could adjust with these little drag handles, but wait a second, let's add one more down here. click on this edge. And so we've added 2. Go ahead and hit the green check. So fillets are kind of fun. All right, let's now go over here to chamfer. Now chamfer, instead of a radius or a round, it's actually a direct angle. So if it's equal side distances on both sides of a perpendicular edge, it's going to be 45 degrees or whatever you want to set it to. So go to equal edge chamfer or chamfer, and here you can see there's distance to distance, distance to angle, or 45 degrees to distance. So there's all these nice options. We'll just go distance times distance. In this case, it's going to be 45 degrees anyway. And we'll set this to 0.125. Now, if you're wondering why I'm doing this all in English or the imperial system, is because here we're in the US. I do feel that there's metric is superior, and there is a way you could open up a metric file in here as well. But right now we'll focus on this. So go ahead and select this edge here. You'll see the preview of the chamfer. I would say Creo has one of the best preview tools when it comes to shells and chamfers and fillets. So hit OK. All right. Now rotate this with your wheel. Remember, you hold it down like it's a button and move your mouse left or right or up and down. Get it to where it looks like you're looking at it from this perspective. You're looking at the back. And if you need to, pause my video, take some time and get it rotated similarly to this. And there's a reason for that. When you're ready, go ahead and hit play. All right, so now we're going to go to the shell command. The shell command enables you to specify a wall thickness overall, and we'll set that to 0.06, so 60,000ths of an inch. And now select the faces we want to remove. So click on this face here, and you can see a preview of the shell. If you click on the side face, it'll override that one. So you need to hold Control, select one entity. So hold Control and select those 3 faces. The rest of them we want to keep. All right, and hit the green check. And there we go. So now we have our model. Now that's the model. You could go ahead and export this as a PDF, and the way you could do that, first of all, get it in an isometric view. So if you go over here, that's a standard view. Send that to me. Those of you who are in my class, those of you who are online, of course, don't send them to me. I don't need to see those, but those of you in my class, this is typically what you'll do. All right, let's go now to File, and we want to go ahead. And you could do a couple things. You could actually print. All right, and there's Quick Print, and you could select PDF. So it actually will print out different views for you and things like that. You know, this might be a little too complex for your first day. Let's actually go to File, and let's go to Quick Print. And we get this instead, and set it to Microsoft Print PDF, print to PDF. And you can just verify you're on landscape or portrait. Landscape is typically a good one here. If there's any options where it might not be centering, you can maybe tinker with it a little bit and make sure it gets centered. But go ahead and hit OK, and hit OK. And now it's going to prompt us. I'm going to go ahead and save this to my desktop. I'm just going to call it X, hit Enter. And now I could take a look at that printout, and here it is. And I've got some interesting lines. I'm not sure if that's showing up. Actually, I'm not familiar with why those lines are in there. That's okay if that's happening. That might be a setting that I'm just unaware of, or a glitch, but I'm not going to grade on extra lines in there. That's I'm not sure how to control that, but I'll have to figure it out. All right, so that's all I have to do. Send that PDF to me. Those of you actually put it in D2L for the under Exercise 1 in the assignments area, and I grade from there. Now, those of you who would like to see more or learn more about this, here's some fun things. If you'd like to have a little fun, if those of you who are the artists in my class, let's look at colors and things. How do you add those blue colors or different colors or metals? Well, that's actually, if you go to View, you could go over here to appearances, and you'll see there's a whole library of different appearances. So for example, if we want to select something, like over here we have aluminum, polished, or chrome plate. I'm going to go with chrome plate, but you can select whatever you like. Now before you just start clicking, over here is the filter. Now to see the filter, unfortunately, mine goes off the screen, so you can't see it, but on your screen you'll see it. It'll actually pan up. And what you want is, in this case, let's select body. And I'll click, and then middle click. And then it should have that appropriate color. So what you could do here too now is go to shading with reflections, and you'll start to really see it shine. Okay, that's the realistic settings. Now, a couple other things. You might want to put like a different color on here, like I chose blue earlier. Go to appearances. And there's blue, there's green, there's red. Choose whatever you like. Or there's copper, there's gold. Actually, this time around, I'll go with a polished gold. I think this is it, yeah. And instead of all, I'm going to go to surface. Select these surfaces. And you have to hold Control. Grab those surfaces. And now release Control and middle click. And so you could actually see those effects that are coming through. All right, some of the other things. Over here, there's perspective. So if you want to make it look more realistic, click on perspective. It gives you a vanishing point, just like in a room. When it gets smaller, the further away you get from it, at least visually. That's what you're getting with perspective. So that's an option. You don't usually want to work in perspective, but it's still nice to visualize. Now let's say we want the floor underneath here. For that, you go to Applications. And not everyone has the Render Studio. It's my understanding, I think it's not in all versions. So just be aware, if it's grayed out, that means that your company or wherever you're working doesn't have that. So go to Render Studio. And you'll see there's real-time rendering you could activate, and it will photorealistically render this. It actually takes multiple processors. The more processors or threads you have, the faster it's going to be, most likely. All right, now if you go to Scene, you'll see there's different backgrounds and such, but go to Edit Scene, and then over here you could go to Environment, and you could toggle this. So like maybe I want this to be top, or let's see, front, maybe back. There you go. And now it's on the floor. You can see the way it's resting. So you have the options to adjust that. You could turn off shadows, reflections. You could adjust a lot of neat things in here, add additional lights. I'm not going to show you how to do all that. Go ahead and tinker with it. There are different backgrounds too to select. Right, now just be aware, it takes a lot of resources when you have real-time rendering turned on, so eventually you want to turn it off. And then it goes to this, which is still fine. Or you could toggle it back to shaded with edges, however you prefer. Shaded with edges is probably going to be pretty fast on most graphics cards. All right, and that concludes exercise 1. Now, those of you who are in my class and are looking at the training guide, which is on Vertani 1, or actually link is down below in the YouTube area there for this training guide. At least I'm going to make sure I try to put it there. You'll see that there's 2 exercises that go along with this. And those exercises is labs. Labs 1 and Lab 1B. And Lab 1 looks like the letter F. Now, you have to make it according to the actual print. I'm not going to make it exactly to it, but I'm just going to go through it because that's what these labs are, what you should be doing on your own in order to become an expert user. If you watch the videos, I recommend watching them after you do it, just because you'll be you're going to learn tricks that you didn't realize, and you're also going to show yourself some things that I'm not showing you. So my recommendation is first try and look at it. It's on page, I believe, page 15 or 16. It's right at the end of exercise 1 if you just scroll down in the book. But anyway, let's start with new. And so this is going to be L1 for Lab 1. And those of you in my class, just be aware that you're going to need to, there's actually an assignments area. The labs are down at the bottom, so make sure you insert this one separately from exercise 1. Okay, so for this, I'm going to select the front plane. Most of the time, I like selecting the front plane go to extrude because we know it's going to be an extrusion eventually. And we could go to the line tool. Now, I know that it's about 2 inches in height, so I'm going to first draw a 2-inch line. So I drew the line, typed in 2, there it is. Now, I'm going to go to the line tool and construct the rest of this. So I'm going to drag this across. It kind of looks like this. And what's neat is you can conceptualize this. Go about the same height here. And then across. Stay away from equal. See that little equal symbol to the right? That's not always a good thing. So stay away from equals. Even though there is an option in the tools options, you can turn that off. So just make sure there's no equal symbol to the right of your pointer. Drag this up. Oops, and double middle click to end the chain. Now the dimensions appear, but like this is not straight, and that was to avoid an equal relationship. So I'm going to click on it, and over here I could actually specify if I want it to be, see there's equal, and then there's horizontal. And I select it, and it locks in. Notice the dimension disappeared because it locked in that way. All right, so I do have an equal here, and if you have any equals, middle click a couple times. Click on those equals and delete them because we don't want those. But let's get some of these other dimensions in here. So let's see, all in all, I'll just make this 5. I'm not sure what it is in the book because I don't have it handy right now, but you should make yours according to the drawing that's in the book. Okay, so now I'm going to add this one, and I believe I remember this one. I'm going to click on this, and if you remember how to put in the dimension, middle wheel button, click, and it should drop it in. And this is going to be 2, I believe. It might actually be less than that, like 1.75. All right, then there's this one, and that one's going to be, I think, 1.75 or something close to it. And then let's get those dimensions up there. I think that's actually too far, 1.25 maybe. I'm just trying to go by memory. So, okay, and then we'll add one more from here to here. The middle wheel click, and we'll make that 4. All right, now there's some additional dimensions from here to here. That's going to be 1. And then from here, middle wheel click, that's going to be 0.85. Okay. And I might have it dimensioned a bit different, just be aware, but this gives you an overall idea of what the expectation is. Once you get it to proper geometry, hit the green check, and it should go right to extrude, and it's only, I believe, a 1/2 inch thick. But make sure you look at the drawing. Hit enter. And there is Lab 1. And again, you're just going to go to File, Print, Quick Print, and just make sure it's set to PDF and hit OK. Save it, and then submit that for in the Lab 1 or L1 area. Okay, Lab 2, or Lab 1B is a little different. I'm going to go New, and I'm going to L1B, hit OK. And again, this one I'm going to mix things up a little bit. I'm going to go with the top plane. You don't have to do it. You can do it on the front plane. It doesn't really matter. As long as you understand your spatial awareness. In some cases, it does matter, but not in this one. So I'm going to go to top, go to extrude. And this one, let's try something different. Instead of the corner rectangle, go with the center rectangle. And click and drag this out. Middle click, and notice I centered it. And this is going to be 5 by 3. All right, and now you could actually add in a circle over here, like just right about there. Stay away, don't touch the edges or anything. Stay away from the edges, click, middle click 2 times, and now we could actually add these parameters. This is going to be 0.75. The diameter is 0.5, and then this one is going to be 0.75. Okay, and leave the dimensions out like you'd like to see them in the drawing. And now we could mirror. Normally I would have you build each one just like that off of each corner, but I'm going to show you a trick. We cover mirroring next week, which is exercise 2, but I'm going to show you a preview on how to do it because it saves a lot of time. Go to Centerline and draw vertical and horizontal center line. I know you're saying, well, there's a center line right there. Unfortunately, it's not a center line. It's not considered a center line. Center lines are needed for mirroring, okay? And if you don't have these, it's not going to work. You're just going to have to draw them in each one at a time. But here you go. Now that I have that, I could click on this entity. I could go and click on mirror and select the center line I want to mirror it across. Okay. Let's try that again. I'm going to click and select both of these. Oh, actually, I could just hold Shift or Control. Go to mirror, and now the horizontal center line. There it is. Hit OK. And now we want this to be 1.5 inches, so 1.5. Enter. Now we could select this face here, go to Extrude. We use our center rectangle again, and just draw out a box in the center to this upper edge, middle click, and it's going to be 1.5 for the width. And this one I do remember. This one's easy to remember the dimensions on. And hit OK. Now it's going to extrude outward, but we want to cut, so reverse it. And it's just warning us. You could turn this off if you don't like to see that warning that we did that. And the depth of this is going to be 1 inch. So it leaves a 1/2 inch wall there. Hit the green check. Now what I recommend doing, because these are kind of very basic parts, but that's how you learn, have fun with this. Enjoy putting fillets in and things and send it to me. Try and keep the original dimensions as they are, but add fillets, chamfers, that fun stuff, paint it. So like, for example, this one, I'm going to go to the rounds. I should say rounds, not fillets. I can select this edge, and look at this. Just grab those yellow dots and drag them to where you say, oh, yeah, I like that right there. I'm going to use that on all the edges. Oops. And if you select something you don't want it, you could click on it again to deselect it. Now here I'm going to rotate to get this side. Okay, and I'm going to add one here. Oh, that's really big, so I'm going to shrink that one down. And then this one here. All right, hit OK. Now go to chamfer, and 0.125 is pretty good. We could stick with that. Here, here. Okay. You know what, chamfer, you could also make a countersink. So you could put one here and here. Add them to the holes. And you can make adjustments to that too by grabbing those and putting values. All right, now we could shell it. Just go out to the back side, go to shell, select this face. 0.075 pretty good, and just stick with that. And like I said, just have fun with it. Learn how to use it. Now to paint it, go over to the View, Appearances, and I'm going to go with gold on this one, just for the fun of it. And I'm going to select part or body, actually. Middle click. And then you could go to red. You could go choose anything. This is going to look ugly, I think, when I'm done. But we could select face, or surface, I should say. And you could select this. All right. Oops, forgot you have to hold Control. Middle click. And now we could go to the applications. And if you have Render Studio, go ahead and try it. Oh, also remember this. If you don't have Render Studio, you could still use this, I believe. So, but anyhow, I'm going to go to Render Studio. It should photorealistically render it for us. And because we drew it on the top plane, the floor is already underneath it. So we're in pretty good shape there. So this way you could have some fun. Don't forget, you could also turn on over here, perspective. And remember, real-time rendering takes up a lot of resources. But here you could also put in a different floor. Here we actually added that it's like sitting on a street. And the longer you let it sit, the better render is going to be. It's going to just take some time. And feel free to experiment. Pick some of these different options that we have here. Yes, if you're designing a bench or something, you can put that right there. These are outstanding. They just recently added these, and I just really enjoy the high detail that they have added, and the render is phenomenal. Oh, and for this, if you want to actually capture this with the rendering, You do have the ability to do screenshot and things like that. I just like the easy Windows Shift and S, which then it enables you, because I'm in, here we go, enables me to just click and drag a fence on what I want, and then I can drop it into a Google Doc or a Word doc and paste it. Oops. Making it difficult. All right, and Control V to paste, V in Victor, and there we have it. So you could send that off and save this as a PDF, or send me the Word document. Those of you in my classes, you can submit. So that's another way you could actually get those photo renderings, which are really cool. All right, that concludes this exercise. Good luck, and hope you enjoy the software.